What's up, y'all? It's Brian from East Coast Kelly's and the Cool Fireman Podcast. We're at the brand new branch of Civic Federal Credit Union in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I'm super stoked because on this week's episode, we're going to be interviewing Chris Temple from Civic, where we're going to be talking about financial freedom for firefighters. So without further ado, let's get started.
Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast, a virtual firehouse kitchen table with Matt, Adam, Brian, Doug, and Freddie, where they discuss everything that matters in today's fire service. Now let's get to the show.
What's up, y'all? It's Brian from East Coast Kelly's and the Cool Fireman Podcast. We're watching a very special episode today. We're at the South Atlantic Fire Rescue Expo in Raleigh, North Carolina. And as you may or may not have seen, depending on how we drop these, we've got special guests that are talking to us all about things that are important in the fire service. Whether it's people who own their own business, or like today, Chris Temple from Civic, who is a credit union, about how to have that financial freedom of whether you own your own business or you're just a firefighter and their family trying to make it through in today's times. So Chris, thank you for joining us. It may get a little loud behind us, and if that's okay, we're just going to keep pushing through, but in typical firefighter form, they're a little loud and a little rowdy behind us. So thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yes, thanks for having and giving us this opportunity to be here today.
Super exciting. But I want to know, really your role at Civic, but then what Civic has done for the fire service as a whole, because I think that's why I asked you to come, right?
Yeah,
because I think what Civic does for the fire service, at least in our state, is so awesome. And there's probably credit unions around the country that are doing something very similar.
I'm sure of that. And the credit union movement in general is very philanthropic. But specific here in North Carolina, what we do with Civic is firefighters are kind of treated very well around here. Our credit union is made up of people who work for local governments. And as such, we feel the need to contribute to make those local governments a little bit better wherever we can. With firefighters, though, specifically, we have a debit card that has a fire truck on it. Every time that debit card is swiped, there's interchange involved. And interchange fees are what merchants pay the credit union or Visa or MasterCard, depending. We use Visa, so every time that card is swiped, 50% of the merchant fees come to us, 50% of those interchange fees go to Visa. We take the portion that comes to the credit union and we donate it to the North Carolina State Firefighters Association. Yeah. And to date, that program's almost 20 years old, and we've given over $4.9 million, I believe was the accurate figure as of yesterday.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So to give back, to have a bank give back like that, is pretty impressive. When you start seeing a lot of the different banks, the reason why you probably don't see, credit unions advertised is because it's a unique blend of membership, right? Like you said,
it very much is.
It's the eligibility, and they're not necessarily chasing the dollar because we own the credit union. We talked about this yesterday on the floor.
That is precisely right.
Right?
Yes.
So we own it together.
That's
You're
right.
a member, I'm a member, we're the owners.
And
just yesterday, I had a conversation with Dwayne, who's the CEO, and how cool was it for me as one of the owners of the credit union, as a member, to be able to have a conversation with him about vision and where we're going and what do we do and how do we do it. And I think that's pretty awesome because it helps me to make sure that when I go to sign that loan application, whatever it is, because I'm going to buy a car, I'm going to get a credit card or whatever, that my money is going where it needs to go.
That's right. That's right. And I think something that Brian started off talking about is something that we stress in the credit union movement a lot, is that once you join a credit union, once you're eligible to join a credit union, you become an owner and you become a member. And then it carries a little bit more weight. Credit unions and banks are different because of that one thing. The big difference is who owns it. But as Brian said, when you're a credit union member, you may have access to your CEO. You definitely have the opportunity to have influence on how the credit union is governed, what products and services they offer, how we give back. All of those things are influenced because our members tell us, and not some corporate CEO or corporate stockholders that are breathing down our necks trying to make us make profit. Everything that we make as a credit union goes back into the credit union. We make no money whatsoever. We are a not-for-profit.
Let's talk about the philanthropy work that Civic does, because I think that's so important. There's foundations that are created, and that's part of that not-for-profit work. So, firefighters by nature, and the people that are listening here, they're not in it. I don't want to say they're not in it for the pay. I mean, they got to pay pay their bills.
Right.
And a lot of them have their own businesses, and we'll talk about small business here in a second and how the Civic specifically and other credit unions can help with that. But anyways, really is about how do you make the money that is made give back?
Yeah,
right?
It's several different ways. I think generally speaking in the credit union movement, credit unions, like we just talked about, give money back by reinvesting and subsidizing your rates. So if you're wanting to borrow, you're going to get a better deal. You're going to get a lower rate generally than you would on an open market, say at another financial institution.
So car loans,
whatever, house loan, home equity lines, even credit cards. And it cuts both ways, right? So not only are you getting a better deal on a loan, you're going to get a better deal when you deposit money. Right. So we're doing the same thing with our rates on the deposit side. Credit union rates are generally better because we are not paying profit out to our shareholders.
Right. So you won't see, you may see some naming rights of a building or something like that that's on a good project, but you're not going to see a credit union sponsor a football stadium or something like that with it, right?
Right. Those are exceedingly rare.
Right, because that's not its purpose. That's not its mission. But you may see it on a food bank or a library in a community that can't afford it, or a homeless shelter or something like that.
Absolutely. Or moreover, you may never see it. You may see a name on something like this where we sponsor the events, But by and large, the credit union will give its money and its philanthropy and not take credit for it generally. I think about all in the fire service especially. We sponsor several different events through the year where firefighters are needing to raise money for their station. Perhaps they need new turnout gear. Civic will come in, and other credit unions will do this as well, but Civic will come in and help sponsor the event so that to maintain its successful nature, right? We want to make sure that when we give money, we're doing things that help out our membership as well as the citizens in our state.
Yeah. And I think that's important. At the end of the day, it is a financial institution that has to make a profit. Right. But it doesn't necessarily have to end the year on a profit.
That's right.
Right.
That is a great way to put it.
It has to pay its employees. It has to pay, the things that it takes to run it. But at the end of the day, when it's done, it's like, all right, we've had a good year. Now, how do we give this back?
That is precisely right.
And I think that's pretty cool. So let's talk about small business. Let's talk about the fire service. Everybody's got a side hustle of some sort, right? Even if it's cutting grass or painter or whatever, so how does the credit union support small business? And is that common for credit unions to do that?
Yeah, I think it's becoming more common, but here in North Carolina, we were definitely aware when Civic opened that we were the first credit union that could open accounts online, but also not only just for regular members, but the members' businesses as well. Why that's important to us is because, like we were talking about, a lot of volunteer firefighters, a lot of career firefighters have a side hustle. And typically those are underbaked for whatever reason. Perhaps you're doing your side hustle and your regular job. It's really hard to get a handle on the financing and that aspect of your business. But Civic does offer that because we know how important it is to people who join us.
Yeah. So just this past week, I got to give kudos to Civic because just this past week, I was setting up the ability to take credit cards for my business. Up to this point, it's been they wire me the money or I get a check. Sure. And that's the traditional way of doing things. But as my business grows, I needed the ability to take debit cards. And so we have a unique relationship, you and I. And so I reached out to you and you're like, we have this whole section that deals with small business. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And they did the shopping for me. They told me what was the best solution. And I verified, I did a quick Google, and it was like, yep, that's the lowest.
That's right.
And I was like, I didn't have to do all that research.
Yeah.
And when I called the company, they vetted it. They said, yep, you're part of Civic Federal Credit Union. You get the special rate. It's negotiated rate. And so you get the benefit of this outside of it. So a for-profit company, because they bring members to them, I got a discount. Correct. And I was like, how cool is that? So let's talk about, these other credit unions. They may not have this service, but what are some of the things that credit unions traditionally do? Even if they don't have a small business, what are some of the things that they give back to their members?
Absolutely. Credit unions, again, were formed to help people that may not be of, rich means, people that may not have been making $500,000 and $600,000 and $700,000 a year. Most credit unions started around an employer group, if you look back in history. And so their interests were that the people that they were serving, the credit unions, were themselves. They were serving, think about the days of factories, for example. It seemed to make, in the early days of the credit union movement, there was a big push to get every factory their own credit union. And in that sense, it was developing a sense of community. You were banking as a verb with folks who you work with, right? So always credit unions are your neighbors. They're always people that are going to be people who think like you and are in similar circumstances. But therefore, again, the value proposition is we give you a lower rate because we can. We're not making profit. We are reinvesting that money and then making subsidized rates available to our membership.
So in addition to those benefits, I've seen credit unions do things like tax preparation, will service, estate planning, things like that you wouldn't think a bank would come in and do. It's like, I'm here to get an auto loan, or I'm here to get a credit card, or I'm here to get, whatever. But it's more than that. When a firefighter lays down their head at night and they go, man, I really hope I come home tomorrow after my shift, it's, what else do I have going? I know for me, when I was a young firefighter on shift and I had kids at home, I was like, thank God I have a will. Thank God I have, all these other things that are done. And so I think that that's important when you're looking at financial institutions. Are they giving that to you?
That's right.
At low or no cost? Getting a will done is not cheap.
No.
And so, there are credit unions that do that. And maybe you can kind of expound on that.
Absolutely. Our credit union traditionally for the past 40 years has offered tax preparation service. We've done will preparation service. We also do financial education. And this is not a financial education where, we're asking you to do some complex formulas or anything like that. It's simple financial education that everybody needs as far as a basis for getting ahead in their finances and wanting to retire on time, quite frankly. We have retirement. We give retirement advice. Every credit union in some form or fashion, we're all guided by a certain set of principles. And one of those principles was concern for the community. And as such, they do offer programs such as subsidized will planning and estate planning. That is a common theme among all credit unions.
So kind of segue, and I think it's a perfect way to transition our thoughts here, was for that firefighter who's looking for that family financial freedom, if you will. That's a tongue twister, but for that person who's looking for that, what would you say are some of those things that they really need to go in on their radar, whether they can join Civic or, I don't know, they're somewhere far out west and Civic's not an option. When they go to sit down at that credit union or calling over the phone, what are some of the must-do checklist items for that firefighter and their family to have that financial freedom that you're talking about?
Absolutely. I think some of the first things you need to discuss with your credit union when you join it is simply starting a plan for savings. That's the number one thing that you can recommend to anyone who is starting to go down a road towards financial freedom. And at that too, start thinking about how much money you need every month. If you figure that number out, times it by 3 and have a 90-day savings plan. That is the very first piece of information you can give anyone that's starting off a road to financial freedom. The next thing you want to do is check out that credit union's rate structure. See what their credit card rate structure is like. Everyone needs a credit card. You don't need to use it, but you do need to have one. And so start looking at things like their credit card rates. Look to see if you can save money by refinancing your auto loan. It's very probable that you may be paying a higher rate with another financial institution. Credit unions typically do have lower rates for their auto loans. So you need to look at that too. Look at refinancing your home or any other outside debt. And then talk to your credit union representative about a plan to get rid of high interest debt. That is probably the second most important thing I can tell you. Pay your high interest debt down first and work with your credit union to establish a plan to do that.
So I think what you said was very important. Some people may have, I don't want to say toned out, but you're like, hey, 3 to 6 months, they're like, I'm just trying to figure out if I can afford milk.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
But you have to have steps 2 and 3 in mind in order to achieve step 1.
That's right.
And I think that that's really important. And sitting down with somebody who understands the complex math,
that's
right, that you're talking about at these credit unions will help you achieve step 1.
Yes.
And I think when you start looking at this and you say, hey, I'm on the job, I want to retire at this age or at this year, all those are very important. Just last night in the hotel here at the conference, I heard a story of a couple who was 70 and 68, I think it was, and they were working full-time jobs because they did not prepare. Like they retired and they went back to work.
Right.
And it was not what they wanted to do. And I sat there as I was watching that, thinking about this podcast, thinking about other stuff. I said to myself, I've got to make sure that my plan's right because I don't want to be in that spot. And then I took a little bit of a breath and I was like, no, I'm good. Right. Because of relationships like this.
Yes.
Because of the planning. Because if you take that advice seriously, you don't live in the moment of right now of things that you want versus things that you need.
That's right.
Somebody's got to have that hard conversation with you.
They do.
Right?
And have a good conversation. That's a very difficult conversation to have. But what I think you'll find when you work with a credit union is that you're talking to neighbors, you're talking to peers, you're talking to people that know you, and they're able to give that message in a way that's not condescending. It's not talking down to you. It's only because they truly do want what's best for you. And so what you're going to get with the credit union is not someone who's just going to give you advice. They're going to give you stewardship and leadership and in a way that you can understand it. We are all trained to recognize and notice various different types of people. But the main thing that we do is deal with people we recognize as our own. And you're going to find that at a credit union where you may not find that at another financial institution.
I love that. I love the whole concept of that, of you're sitting down with someone like you.
That's right.
Right? Because I think when for me, when I sit down with somebody at one of these big companies and firms that do investments and everything else, I sit behind someone that's not like me.
That's right. Yeah.
And so when I talk to someone at the credit union, it's very personable.
It is.
I was talking to Dwayne yesterday. Civic's a little unique breed, right? The fire service. When I say that, because literally I'm able to email a friend of mine's wife who can help me troubleshoot things because I've got a million things going,
right.
But it's personal. And I mean, again, we value relationships so much in today's time. At least I think we should. Yeah. And the beauty of that is the credit union lets you do that because of what it is. So for the people that are listening, this may sound a little pitchy to credit unions or whatever, but again, it goes back to that financial freedom, right? So it's pitchy in the context of saying, yeah, you should do this, but in reality, it's doing it for yourself.
It is.
Right? If you go back and think about it, it's if this is ours and it's our members, then it's only beneficial to us. And if you can have a clear conscience when it comes to financial freedom, either for yourself, a business that you're starting, you can have a clear conscience to go out and do your job as a firefighter much better.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the value add that I take away from it is I don't want to go to work stressing out about things at home or how I'm going to pay for this or that and have that clog my sense of decision making. Right? Like that doesn't need to be on my mind when I go to work.
Yeah.
I need to be thinking about the job that I'm there to do because in some instances it can mean life or death.
That's right. We understand that.
And that financial stability and freedom needs to be resolved, right?
Yeah, we can't have firefighters working here in North Carolina who are busy deciding on how they're going to buy diapers that evening. That is simply unacceptable. And it should be unacceptable to everybody, but here at the credit union, it really is. Because again, I hate to circle back to it, but the people that you work with in the credit union are the people that you may worship with one day a week. They may be people that are in they may be coaching your son's basketball team.
Right.
They're your neighbors. And so it kind of behooves us. It makes us want to take care of you a little bit better.
Yeah. So if you had one kind of closing thought on this, for folks that are on the fence still, right? Like they're like, I just don't know that that's for me. It's a big lift, right? I mean, when you change financial institutions, it is not a simple thing.
It's a lot of work.
There's, everything from just as simple as the Apple Pay on your phone. Now you got to fix that, but your bills and everything else. Why is it worth it? Why is it worth it?
It's worth it for a multitude of reasons. The first is very simple. You're going to save money. All right. You're simply just going to save money when you choose credit unions. So keep that in mind. The number one overarching reason is that you're going to save money. But secondly, you're doing something good for your community. And as we understand the fire service, it's all about community. And again, when you join this, you're helping out your fellow firefighters. You're helping out your fellow folks that in your counties, in your cities, in your towns, and across the state who depend on you. So in a lot of ways, it's a continuation of the mission.
Yeah.
So again, save money, and then also for the sense of community.
Yeah. So Civic is available in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. If you're in any one of those 4 states, I personally, as an advisory council member and a member of it for many accounts,
Yes.
I encourage you to join it. But if you're not, a simple Google search of credit union in your areas, credit unions near me, vet them, look to see what they're doing, see what their foundation work is in. And if it's something you can get behind, do the rate check, like Chris said, and see what they're able to give back to you, because it is a big decision to switch financial institutions as a family. But check them out, because again, credit unions are here for you for the duration. Because again, they're lending and they're borrowing to help you out in the end. So Chris, thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much.
This was a good dialogue. And again, all with the intent of helping our firefighters along for the better.
Yes. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Roll it, Gigi.
Before you leave, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give these firemen a huge thumbs up. Also, make sure you check out thecoolfireman.com for more. Thanks!